Hey guys, welcome back to Arting Around with Miss Brown Home Edition. Today we're going to work on making some homemade paints. So let me show you what I have here. I've got some coffee, and then in the cup in front I brewed it. So I just ran it through the coffee machine like you normally would. I've got some spices. I've got curry and turmeric, which make a nice yellow color. And then some dark chili powder for a brownish red. I also have some food coloring. And then some Kool-Aid. And as you can see in the cups in the front, I just added the powders with a little bit of water just to make the paints. So if you don't have paint at home, this is a good alternative for things that you could use to paint with. Here's just to show you what the colors look like after I painted a coat with them. So we've got coffee on the left, and then our Kool-Aid, our food coloring is the blue. And then our spices are at the end. You can see the spices I didn't mix up super well, so they have a little bit of texture to them. But I kind of like it like that. I was thinking that chili powder would make a nice sand if I was doing a beach scene. You also can just put like the food coloring and the things in concentrated forms on little dishes and add water to it. So that's some blue food coloring that is... If I want a darker blue, I'll use that instead of where it's diluted down with the water. Okay, so a couple examples. So here's when I was just playing with the paints, just testing out the colors, so it's more abstract. Some areas I would wet the paper first and then paint, so you get that sort of wet and wet look where the paint spread a little bit more. Or if you wanted a more defined line, you wouldn't wet your paper down first. And then I was working on just a sunshine, and I realized that when I did this, I should have done the background first, let it dry, and then went back over it with the paints for the sun. So you might want to think about that before you start how to layer it so that you can kind of build on top of it. Then for the background, I wouldn't have had to go around the squiggles, which I kind of gave up and just did it more abstract, but I think it looks fine. And then here's just to show you how much layering makes a difference. I was working on a beach picture. I decided I didn't like this one, but that's just to show you how the colors look light with the first layer or two. And then here's one where I really kept going back and layering over it so you can see how much it darkens things up. So the sand, I started with coffee, let it dry, and then I added chili powder several times. The water, I just kept layering up that blue food coloring. And then I even used, like I was saying, some of the concentrated blue food coloring just right out of the tube for the really dark areas. The sky, I did a layer of the blue food coloring as well. And then I added some of the turmeric for the yellow areas in the sky. And then I went over it with a little bit of the pink Kool-Aid, the red Kool-Aid for the other areas. And then where my palm tree and the rocks are, where it's purpley and turquoise, that was just food coloring right out of the bottle. So you can see what a difference it makes when you layer them and keep building on it. You can get more vibrant colors. Okay, so basically, just to show you, you use these the same way as you would normal watercolor paints. So I'm just gonna dip my brush in, get a little bit of food coloring, and then I'll just paint that just to show you how that works. Like I said, it's really light, so if you want a more vibrant, just use it right out of the jar. Don't add water to it. And you can see how different that looks. Another thing you could do is you could pre-wet your paper. So this technique is called wet and wet. So I just have it wet already. And then when I go back and add the paint to it, it does this thing where it kind of spreads and it's unpredictable. So that's kind of a cool technique that you can do. It just kind of moves away at its own prerogative. It just kind of does whatever it wants to do. That's how I did this swirly line here. See how it spreads there? That was wet paper there. So if you don't have paint at home, feel free to make up some and go ahead and explore and try these out. Some other things you can use to make paint is dirt. So just go outside, get some dirt, mix up some mud. You could use Jell-O mix. You could brew tea. Another spice you could use is paprika. You could take Skittles, soak them in water, and then you'd have all the colors of the rainbow. If you colored eggs for Easter and have some extra dye at home, you could use Easter egg dye. Also beets, if you have beets in a can, if you take them out, the water is a really nice deep red. And then sanding sugar, that's the sprinkles that are like this, like the ones that are made out of colored sugar. You could put those in water and then they melt down if you use hot water, and you could use those. So enjoy. I hope you try out making some homemade paint.